All right, welcome everyone to the week 3 overview. The first thing that I want to acknowledge is that I did have a question last week about how on the orange assignment sheet that the presentations are listed as voice threads. I think since I've started looking at other programs, I realized that I like this DU recorder program better for my weekly updates. I don't really think that I need to use VoiceThread because VoiceThread's really for interactive presentations. So I probably will be using the DU recorder most of the time for the weekly presentations. So just know that whatever presentation I have under that first part of part 1 every week for the weekly presentations, know that it'll probably just be a video. All right. Next are some updates. The first thing I want to let you know about is that up till this week, you've been graded pass-fail on all of your discussion posts and replies. So if you did it, you got 10 points. 10 points for the discussion post, 10 points for the reply. It was pretty much just pass-fail because I wanted you to get used to the course, everything in D2L, how everything was working. And so now it's going to get a little more serious. So you'll see that there are 2 sections to the rubric. One is for the initial posts, which are now out of 20 points, and one for the replies that's out of 10. You can find this rubric in its entirety. It's posted under week 3, part 1, under the week 3 presentation subfolder. It is the 3rd document in the list. Next, I've uploaded my annotated copies of all the mentor text. You'll see them in the same spot. So week 3, part 1, week 3 presentation subfolder. All 4 of them that you read last week are there. It would be a really good idea for you to check these out. I have annotated them for the 6 traits. I've annotated them for characteristics of a well-told story. You probably should just look at them. I would go through, read my annotations. If you have any questions, let me know. Lastly, for an update, Lorenzo had a great suggestion, so I added some fun forums. That was my name, not his, to our discussion board. It is the 2nd discussion board, so if you go to Communications Discussions, you'll see it. The first one is just what are you reading or listening to? If you're reading a good book, if you've read a good poem, you read an interesting article, you're listening to a cool podcast, go ahead and tell us about it. I've been doing that, but I've been using the announcement section of D2L, so I'll just start using my fun forum for that. Secondly, there's also a place to share our own writing. So if you are writing poems or short stories or some essays or something and you would like us to read them or share them with us, that we'd be happy to read them. So just go ahead and post them there. This is for all out-of-course writing. So please use the fun forums. I'm excited to see what you post. Okay, first an acknowledgement about week 3. Week 3 is really content heavy. And I know that because I had to make a lot of different videos for week 3. And all I kept thinking was, wow, there's a lot of content in week 3. So just know that there's going to be a lot of videos. We're really getting into what I'm expecting in that personal narrative. So we're going to cover tense and dialogue and description. We're going to do a lot of thinking and writing this week. So you'll notice that this week feels different than last week. Okay. The first thing you're going to do this week is listen to Serial Episode 3. It's about Leakin Park. I hope you enjoy this episode. To me, it was always a bit of a red herring. But I'll see what you think when you listen to the episode. But it is about the park where Hayes' body was found. There's a lot of interesting things about this, and I know you should be thinking about your Curiosity Quest presentation. Boy, does this episode have some great fodder for those questions. So enjoy episode 3. All right. Then I just I put this slide in here because in the face-to-face section, we still talk about breaking things into acts. So this slide breaks episode 3 into acts. So I'll quickly go through them. They're animated. So the first thing, if I can get it to work here, there we go, is that you are introduced to Detectives Ritz and McGillivray. Those are the 2 detectives that kind of question Adnan. I think you were introduced to, actually maybe episode 3 is where you learn about them. Next, you learn about the beginning of the investigation and the suspects they had so far. They talk about the background on Leakin Park. They give you Mr. S as an interesting character you'll be introduced to this week. They talk about his story. They talk about how he found the body and how could he have found the body, because the body was, as you can see, nearly impossible to spot. Next, they break into the plausibility of Mr. S's story. Sarah actually goes on a field trip to Leakin Park, and so she will talk you through what everything looks like when she gets there. And then they're going to talk about the evidence they gathered at the scene. And then there's this whole thing about a streaker story that I think you will find interesting. And then the conclusion about Mr. S. So again, that's how we would break that episode down into acts. So again, breaking it into, in reading, we called that the major support. So it would be, how does Sarah support her episode overall? So in this case, the episode Leakin Park. Okay, so then getting into the assignments. Oh, don't forget, for Serial, you do have a discussion board, but I know you know that. Make sure you look at the rubric. So the first assignment for this week is to sketch the acts of your narrative. We've done a lot of talking about that now, so you should be ready to do that. In the personal narrative acts subfolder on D2L, you're going to see this. I screenshotted the Word document that's there, so you need to read it. It tells you exactly what to do and how to do it. And then there is an assignment folder for you to upload your acts. Now, know that students in the past have had trouble uploading pictures to the assignment folder. So a couple ways around that. What I did when I made the document that you see here on the screen is I took pictures of my acts, and then, well, actually they weren't mine. I should, in full disclosure, tell you that I sketched acts of one of our mentor texts, but I took pictures of them with my phone, and then I emailed them to myself, and then I downloaded each one of the pictures, and then I just pasted the pictures in a Word document. So that's how I did it. Just be creative and figure out how to get your acts pictured and uploaded to me in the assignment folder. And again, I used index cards, so it might help you too. All right, so that's your first assignment for the week, but after your discussion board. Next, you're going to work on description. Now, if you look at the subfolder on D2L, there's lots of different things on here. So the first thing you should look at is the PDF document that says description for the personal narrative. You should look at that first. You should read the whole thing. It teaches you everything we want you to know about using description. Then there's a video that goes over in much more detail that entire content. You'll see that the video is uploaded as the second thing in this subfolder. And then the PowerPoint presentation that I used for the video is next. Again, as I said in my announcement post last week, you should be watching the videos. This is where the teaching happens. So watch the video, and then you can use the PowerPoint presentation to refer back to later. Next, there's a TED Ed video on descriptive writing. It's on narrative writing, storytelling, but I think that you'll see that it's very useful and helpful anyway. Next, there's the essay Father that you should read. And this goes with the presentation. I think actually we refer to this essay in the presentation. And then there's interviewing a place, which is your discussion topic. You can see on the bottom right, I did screenshot the directions for that. Basically, you're going somewhere that's interesting, and you're going to spend, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, 10 minutes, and you're going to interview the place. This is the last page of the PDF document. It leads you through this, so the directions are very clear. Go someplace interesting. You want to go to like a coffee shop or someplace crowded, the mall. You can come to campus. Go somewhere where there's lots going on so you can really practice your interviewing. And then you're going to write it up for your discussion board post. Okay, next we come to part 2. Now, part 2 for week 3, the first thing that we're going to talk about is satellite writing. Now, again, you'll see on my screenshot of the D2L subfolder that there is a presentation video. You should watch it. And then there's also the PowerPoint presentation that I used in the in the actual video presentation. Satellite writing is something I made up. It's a way to kind of zoom in on those small moments. So you are going to have at the center always of your satellite writing, think planet Earth is your narrative. That is the ground. And all of the satellite writing kind of comes from there. So enjoy the presentation on that. And then we're going to have you practice right away. There's a satellite writing for description. The satellite writing you're going to do for description should be you zooming on a certain scene or person, or we call them props, from your personal narrative. You can see too, I've screenshotted at the bottom right that you are going to do 2 other satellite writings this week, one on dialogue and one on tense, but I'll talk more about those in a moment. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is focus in on dialogue. Now you can see here that there is a voice thread presentation for dialogue. Then you can see I've also given you the PowerPoint presentation that I used in the voice thread. Then there's the link to the Jacked Up State Farm commercial. You're going to need to open that link probably from this subfolder in order to get there. So enjoy. I'm sure you've seen the commercial. If not, it's kind of funny. The next thing you're going to do is some dialogue practice. I've given you the script from the commercial, and you're going to practice incorporating description and tone into dialogue in order to make it active and well done. Then there's also a satellite writing on dialogue. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention in here is that there is a video on how to punctuate dialogue. Freshman Comp assumes you know how to do this. If you don't, you need to watch the video. It's pretty simple, but it's really important that you're not messing up that simple grammar stuff. Okay, next is you're going to go through a similar process on tense. There's a video for tense for your personal narrative. There is a presentation that correlates with it that you can use later after you've watched the video. And then there's a tense aspect chart. It might help. I've screenshotted it. It's pink on the bottom right. And then if you still need more help later, there's a link to the Indiana University of Pennsylvania Writing Center. They have a whole thing on what they call shifty tenses that might help kind of cement some of the foundational stuff that I talk about in my video. Finally, there's a satellite writing on tense. So that will cover our work in tense. Okay. Next, you have 2 more mentor texts to read this week. One is called Salvation, and one is called My First Love Story. They are very, very different. Salvation is by Langston Hughes. It's actually, I think, my favorite Langston Hughes writing of all of his writings, although some of his poems are fantastic, so it is hard to pick. But I will tell you, I love this narrative. So you're going to read that one, and it's going to seem like it doesn't connect at all to My First Love Story, but there is a reason we put them together. And if you listen to the tense presentation, then you will know why. Both of these stories control time in very interesting ways, and that's what I'm going to use those in your tense presentation. Finally, there is a mentor text discussion board that you will post, where you will post this week. Okay, that's all for week 3. Don't forget, you should be getting feedback on your brain dump for your personal narrative. You should be getting that. You should have it pretty soon. I usually try to get that done over the weekend, so you should have it by Monday. Once you do, you need to start editing and revising. You need to be revising by incorporating your satellite writing all week this week. It's not an official assignment on Power or on D2L, but it is something that it's assumed that you're doing, because draft 2 of your personal narrative is due next week. And it must include a cover letter that explains all the changes you've made, why you've made them, and whether you think they're working, and any questions, comments, or concerns you have moving forward. So draft 2 is due next week, and there should be substantial changes based on my initial feedback and any of your satellite writing that you're doing. Okay, please let me know if you have any questions, and have a great week.